Um, thanks for coming, everyone. If you, as always, if you could add your name to the attendance list and the meeting notes, which I just sent on the doc. And a reminder that by joining here today, you're agreeing to abide by the Linux Foundation Code of Conduct. I think there's quite a few people out at KubeCon, but we have, I think, enough people to still have quorum to attend. And we could also give updates. These videos are also recorded and uploaded to YouTube. And so anyone who didn't attend can catch up there as well. So hi to anyone who's watching on the video. We could start with our special interest group updates. Although I think we usually start with seeing if anyone is new to the group who wants to say hi. So if you're new, I think I recognize most names actually, but happy to hear anyone who wants to say hi. Going once?
Hi there.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I'm Aaron Wislang. I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft working on open source things, including cloud native, Linux, Go, etc.
Great, welcome. Anyone else? All right, so we could get into the special interest group updates. On the specification side, we created a project board. Here, actually, let me present the meeting notes. So let me zoom in a little bit. We created a project board to group, because there's so many issues in GitHub that's a little bit hard to keep track. And so there's now this project board, which I can't easily switch tabs. That groups everything kind of by objective. So there's some top level project management stuff around the specification itself and marking it final, restructuring of the levels is the one major thing that was proposed for V1 around splitting build versus source levels, and also separating like what's required of the actual project maintainers versus like the platforms that they run on, like the build systems. The second major area is verification, which is the proposal we haven't implemented yet is splitting in between like how you verify a particular system, such as a build system, which is like a manual process, and that's the conformance, probably something to do with the conformance program, if you remember from previous meetings that was presented. And then something around how we verify individual artifacts. So the idea is that you verify a systems once it's a kind of a manual intensive process, but then you can automatically verify the thousands and thousands of artifacts that are produced from that system. And that's how we could get the scalability, because there's, on the order of like dozens of build systems, let's say, but then hundreds or thousands or 10,000s or hundreds of thousands of packages that are built using those systems. And so explaining all of that and kind of defining it is this second major area. The third major area is around refining the existing requirements. And these are like the various things that are confusing, like what does scripted build mean, isolated service generator. There's various questions around those. And so addressing them is listed here. There's some amount of work around improving the model and terminology, defining source, defining package, better defining builder, etc. Also having like a picture that shows that the builder generates provenance, etc. And then the last major is around explaining the reasoning and philosophy and benefits of like, why are the levels structured this way? What do you get out of it? Where does this requirement come from, et cetera. And so those are this grouping hopefully helps allow people to dig in and organize work and kind of work on, one coherent thing versus like a sea of 50 issues, for example. There's also been some changes to the 1.0 branch. We have a directory because we're not using Git branches for this, that are visible on salsa.dev/spec/v1.0, which I'll add.
You switched to muting.
Thank you. Yeah. I remember 2 times out of 3, but so there's the draft spec is here at /spec/1.0. It's still a work in progress, but if you want to follow along, you could see the latest changes. The levels page is what has the most changes so far. But again, we'll do a final review with the whole community once we do all our iterations. So that's it from this spec group. Is someone here to talk about positioning?
Yeah, I'm here. So for positioning, we had 2 meetings canceled. I was out sick for 2 weeks and Bruno was on vacation. So we met for the first time this past week, and we started off with the development blog of why developers should care about Salsa and what does it help with, et cetera, et cetera. And while going through that exercise, we noticed some discrepancies in the level 1 version 1.0 description for build. And I'm going to take the screen over real quick. It is this right here. I don't know if can you see my screen? So this is taken from 2 different websites within Salsa, which I did put here. One talks about, all build steps were fully defined in some sort of build script. The only manual command, if any, was to invoke the build script. And then it goes along to say that, it prevents mistakes such as building from a client prevents mistakes during the release process, such as building from a client with local modifications, but nowhere does it say that it should not be a developer's workstation, as an example. That doesn't get mentioned till level 2. So this looks more like a level 2 statement. And I mentioned this one to you yesterday, Mark, about the inventory of software. We're not doing anything about a source, but we are for build. So making this clearer would help, because if we don't, then again, there's going to be that confusion. And then we won't be able to write this blog properly either. We were trying to, and we're like, well, it doesn't really seem like there's a one-to-one. There's some hiccups here, and I think we need to fix them. So I just wanted to bring that to folks' attention. And I'm trying to stop the share. And then the other thing is, during the supply chain integrity working group meeting yesterday, it's not the first time it's come up. It's come up a previous time where they want to level up the positioning meeting or the positioning group to be more like a supply chain integrity positioning for a variety of reasons. For now, we'll obviously stay the way we are, but we are going to be working on a supply chain integrity diagram to show, how Salsa, how the new Microsoft framework, I can't remember the acronym, so I'm just going to say the Microsoft framework, Guac, et cetera, how they all work together. And then everyone can use that diagram to talk to their own parts. But just wanted to mention that there's been multiple times where people have said we should probably move up positioning to under the supply chain integrity working group and not have it just be focused on Salsa.
Hey,
So is there
Mel,
any update? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to quickly ask Melba for the discrepancies. Is that that's the 1.0 spec, or is that the existing? It looks like 1.0. Okay.
Yeah, it's 1.0. We tried to go off because we're like, well, by the time this blog comes out, maybe 1.0 will be out and we don't want to have to redo it. So we were doing everything on 1.0. And so
Gotcha.
we need to fix it so that it is clear.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be something good for us for the spec group to just address that, of course. So that's good.
Yeah, I added like little mini issues to that project board. Yeah, I think that's a fixable issue. I'm happy to talk about it now, but I'm not sure if that's the best use of time.
Mark, before I forget, and I'll say it here, I got somebody from the education SIG under the best practice working group that's actually working on that glossary that we talked about in the spec meeting. I'm getting them to come over to the meeting so that we can build that connective tissue between the terms that we're coming up with in SLSA, what's currently in the glossary, and maybe cross-pollinating, right? So taking what we have, bringing it there, taking what they have, bringing it so that all the language is the same, right? So I'm having to come over there just to talk about what they're doing glossary-wise, how far they've gotten, and just to give that kind of once over to the group and on the spec meeting.
Great. And I also shared within the spec group, I think I filed an issue for it. I also created a doc as well that we could merge
Yep.
online. Melba, so the talk about kind of elevating the positioning working group to up to the
Supply
positioning
chain integrity.
up to the OpenSSF working group level, like basically going up one level.
No, it would be supply chain integrity. It would be like SLSA is under supply chain integrity.
Yep.
So instead of it being under SLSA, it would be under supply chain integrity.
Is there any like progress, or like, I know like the topic has come up a lot. Is there any like decisions or progress towards making a decision there?
No, the first time it came up, I kind of joked about it and said, you guys are giving me more work. And then it came up again yesterday. And I mean, it makes sense. I think my only concern, and obviously we'd have to talk about it as a group, is we don't want it to become cumbersome, because even right now with something with smaller scope, it's hard to just get something out because of the differing opinions and et cetera. So when you add scope, that's going to complicate matters worse, and we're already a small group. So that's my only concern. It's not so much the work or anything. It's like, how do we make sure that we actually have tangible outcomes that we can deliver on with a larger scope? We're trying, but even with the smaller scope that we have right now, it's proven quite challenging.
Got it. Thanks. Anything else from positioning?
I just on that, just to echo Melba, I think I'm one of the people who's agitating for this kind of upscoping of positioning, and I totally hear where Melba's coming from with respect to the scope and the work at hand and the limited resources we have. I think my main point here is that I think if we look at positioning overall, the most pressing item we have on the positioning plate is positioning SLSA and S2C2F alongside each other and explaining to the community, to the greater world, to people adopting these things, how they relate, how they should be thought of, how they should be conceptualized, how they're different, how they're the same, and painting that picture and making sure that the OpenSSF can speak consistently and coherently about the two in the same sentence. And I think in terms of overall positioning, that's probably the most pressing positioning problem we have right now. I think there's definitely still work to be done around positioning SLSA generally, and the work that Melba's been driving in SLSA positioning working groups certainly has value. But I think with the introduction of S2C2F into OpenSSF, it seems to me that kind of helping people with the overall comprehension of how S2C2F and SLSA fit together within supply chain is probably moved right to the top of the stack in terms of overall positioning work priorities. But I'm chatting with Melba and Jay later today, and we'll continue working down on that.
Yeah, I stepped away for a couple of seconds, but to echo both Melba and Isaac, you know, with the narrowing of the scope of SLSA into its respective tracks, right? Build track and then the source track. This might be an excellent opportunity, especially when we, and as Isaac said, when we look at the S2C2F and what it does consumption wise. When we work on that diagram and then that subsequent slide to explain the diagram, and we put them up side by side across the whole of the supply chain spectrum, we'll be able to clearly identify gaps in each, and of course those will be worked on in respective SIGs. But for positioning purposes, there's no better way than to walk them together, right? And bridge them together and close gaps together, and that could be done through that up-leveled positioning meeting, as we talk about them both. And nothing says that we can't have the separate meetings as well. But when we take from that meeting, break off into the separate meetings to build and everything else, but then come back up to say, hey, this is where we're at. And hell, we even talked about a .dev that would be an SCI.dev that then would have the individual tabs of each, especially when we begin to answer answer questions or have that problem statement, and then be able to identify solutions to those respective problem statements through the .dev. So I mean, like the thought can be expanded, but that's what the general idea behind this was.
Thanks. Is there anyone here from tooling that could give an update? I know a lot of those folks are at KubeCon.
I can, so I know, Mark, actually, you, me, and Isaac, or not Isaac, sorry, Sean, specifically, or actually probably Isaac too, have been in some of the recent tooling meetings anyhow, so we could probably collaborate. I'm reading on our agenda. Some of the things that we've been talking about is, understanding and documenting what tools are generating valid SLSA provenance, right? Versus like what tools maybe are not generating as kind of strict provenance SLSA format. So we're trying to start to like document that and point some of those ecosystems to the right spot if they're off the mark. And then also we're kind of specifically looking at attestation, distribution, discovery still, kind of poking at that and trying to figure out kind of what direction we want to go as the tooling team.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Okay, I think that's it from the SIG updates. Are there any other topics? We don't have anything else scheduled for today. Are there any other topics that people would like to bring up, discuss? Going once? Going twice? Okay. All right, I think we could end early then. As a reminder, the next 2 weeks are not on, like, we switched to a 4-week cadence, but the next 2 weeks are moved up a week early because of the US Thanksgiving holiday and then the Christmas holiday. So the next meeting is on the 17th, which is in 3 weeks, and then the 15th, which is 4 weeks after that, and then the 19th, which I think might be 5 weeks. Basically, these were kind of one-off moves as opposed to like rejiggering the schedule. So either way, we'll keep this notes doc as the official thing of what is the next meetings, and the OpenSSF calendar also has calendar invites that we'll keep in sync as well. So I just want to remind people. And as always, you could ask on Slack to confirm, but that's the source of truth right here. So thanks, everyone. It was good to see everyone. And we'll meet I'll see you in 3 weeks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.